Hello. So we are going to talk about video number 9 from the AP Review videos on YouTube, and it's about characterization today. We're going to talk about characterization, how character is developed, and how especially we analyze that character. And the important thing to know is that evidence leads to qualities of character, right? And that's what characterization is, when you decide what those qualities of character are. All right, so let's take a look here. We talk about evidence. We can break it up into 3 categories. We could make it direct and indirect, but instead I'm going to do 3 categories here. The first is character description, the second is character dialogue, and the third is character behavior, right? So it's descriptions of who the character is. These could be physical, they could be mental, they could be moral, they could be social, they could be all kinds of different things. Could be what happens to them, that sort of thing. We have what they say, right? What a character chooses to say, because what a character chooses to say obviously tells a lot about who they are. And then finally, behavior, the way they choose to act, and how they choose to act also tells a lot about who they are. All right, those descriptions and that evidence can lead us to deciding what the qualities of a character are, right? And so these could be mental qualities like the ones on there, or moral qualities. They could be physical qualities, or they could be social qualities, right? And these are kind of arbitrary categories, but I think they work for our purposes. One of the interesting things about the AP test this year, this is important, is because you're taking it at home, you can really have whatever it is that you want to have with you. So you could have like the kind of chart that you filled out for today, or you could have, say, a list of vocabulary words. In fact, I've attached one for character qualities to this assignment. You could print that out and have it with you, and it has like many more mental, moral, physical, and social qualities. That is totally up to you. You could certainly do that. All right. So we're going to talk about this excerpt from The Street, which is the 2009 question number 2, prose friction analysis question. Hopefully you've read it. If you haven't read it, pause this video and read it now. Okay, so hopefully you've read it and you're ready to figure out some details about Ludi Johnson, the character here. The first thing you probably notice is the first 3 paragraphs are not even directly about Ludi at all. They're about random people, and more importantly, they're about the weather and the personification of it. But the last 3 are specifically about her. I'm not going to read it to you because I know you can read yourselves. But what I've done is I've identified evidence in those 3 categories: description, behavior, and dialogue. The description. She felt suddenly naked and bald. There's another one actually in the next sentence I meant to highlight. She shivered as the cold fingers of the wind touched the back of her neck, explored the sides of her head. That is really creepy to me, and I think it's it's very invasive and violating. Her eyeballs were bathed in a rush of coldness. Each time she thought she had the silent focus, the wind pushed it out of the way. Right. So that's kind of descriptions of her and what's happening to her. Then we have the behavior. A lot of this stuff is not voluntary, but she shivered. She had to blink in order to read the words. It was, if it was 3, why she would go in and ask to see it. And this is the apartment itself. She read it rapidly. And finally, dialogue, right? There's no dialogue here. Nobody speaks at all. However, the last word, reasonable, seems to me to be what Ludi is thinking. And consequently, I think we can kind of think of that as like dialogue. All right, so I made this chart here. This is the same chart you had in your homework for today. We have the 3 columns: traits, evidence, and commentary. Right, an adjective. The first adjective I chose was vulnerable. My textual evidence: she felt suddenly naked and bald, shivered as the cold fingers of the wind touched the back of her neck, and eyeballs bathed in a rush of coldness. Right, she has these things happening to her from the weather, and she really has no defense against them. So I said vulnerable. Ignore the commentary for right now. I couldn't get that to show up when I wanted to. The second trait I used was determined. And here the evidence blink in order to read. Each time she thought she had the sign in focus, so went pushed it away, but it's each time, so she keeps on trying. She'd go in and ask to see it. She read it rapidly. She found it reasonable. All right, so the commentary. I took these and kind of put them together to see what we see about her values and beliefs. Even though Ludi Johnson is vulnerable to the invasive attack of the weather, she braves the cold fingers of wind and seeks an apartment with 3 rooms that she could go in and ask to see. She's determined to find a reasonable shelter for herself and presumably her family, when many would choose to stay out of the weather, suggesting she puts their needs above their own, right? And so we see that she is this, determined person who is sticking up and trying to get the best for her family and trying to help them out, right? So she's honorable and virtuous and that sort of thing. Okay. All right. Of course, I embedded quotes, all of those things that we've been learning this year. Okay. So you have a good weekend, I hope. For Monday, I want you first to watch video number 10, which is about setting. It's also about this last piece that we read, but this time analyzing the setting of it, and we certainly see how the weather is part of that setting. And then secondly, use the ideas that the teachers on the AP videos talk about, and go ahead and write the essay for the street. And try to use 45 minutes. You've already done some character work, so that shouldn't be too hard to do. All right. Well, have a good weekend, and I will be back on Monday.